In this lesson, I'll give you a quick guided tour of Visual Studio. I'm Hugh, and this is Lesson 3 in my C# programming course. If you're new to C#, or even if you've never programmed at all before, be sure to follow this course in order. You can do that by watching the lessons in the playlist, which is shown under this video. If you followed the previous lessons, you'll already have downloaded a copy of Microsoft Visual Studio, which you can get for free. If you haven't done that, I have another video explaining how to download and install it. Once again, the link is down below. Okay, so now let's take the tour of Visual Studio. As we've seen in earlier lessons, the first thing you need to do is to start a new project. So I select File, New Project, and here I can filter out by language, platform and so on. I'm just going to create a console app, so I select Console App, Next, and I can put in a name if I wish, but I'm just going to accept the default, Next, and Create. And here's the standard console application. I'm going to delete that. I don't want this text here, so I select it and backspace. Before going any further, it's worth noticing a couple of windows. So here is the editing window where I'm going to type my code. And here is the Solution Explorer. That's where the project, or multiple projects in some cases, are shown. And under these nodes, you can see that there are code files. Well, there's only one here called program.cs. And down here, there is a properties window, and that's going to be more useful to us when I show you how to create visual applications. Let me just type some code. Now, as I'm typing, you can see that Visual Studio is making suggestions of things I might want to enter. So it's suggesting string. If I backspace here, you can see I could, if I was a really lazy typer, just select string and double click it, and it would fill it in. Well, I'm going to put in a string with a variable. And as I'm typing, you can see that suggestions are being made. So console, I put a dot. And here is a write line. That's a method or function that's associated with the console class. So I just double click that to select it and enter, carry on entering text, enter. Now, one of the things you will notice as, let me just write a bit more, equals, these grey suggestions, console.readline, they're different from the drop-down IntelliSense suggestions. And if I want to select that, it's not actually written as code at the moment. That's just a sort of a hint to me. If I want to enter it as actual code, I can press the tab. And now you can see that it's actual code because it's been coloured as code. Again, when I go to a new line, it's making a suggestion, console.writeline. And I can tab and I can put in some code. Let me just do that now. One of the things you'll notice is this red squiggly line has appeared here, and it's warning me that it doesn't exist in the current context. Now down below here you can see there's an error list window, and it's showing any errors that have been detected. So here's one, I double click it and it shows me here there should be a semicolon. Then my name does not exist in the current context. Why is that? Well, because I've entered mname up here, so let me just change that, and the red squigglies go away. The error list, if you can't see it, you can go to View, Windows, and you can see that there are all sorts of windows here that you can enable or disable, and then there's other windows here to show you all sorts of different windows that you can display in Visual Studio. Now, if I close the error list and I want to reopen it, I just go back up here and select error list, and up it pops again. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I don't like these grey suggestions popping up all the time. I find them quite distracting. I can tailor the information that's displayed by selecting Tools, Options, and this particular option is found in IntelliCode, and so completions for a whole line of code on the right here. So I want to turn that off, disabled, and I'll put this one disabled as well, show completions on new lines. And when I go back into the editing window, you can see those grey suggestions are no longer there, but the standard IntelliSense that lets me pick items from a list is there. So if you don't like those grey pop-up suggestions, that's the way to disable them. There are lots of other options you can set in Visual Studio. I'm not going to go through them all here, but you can explore them at your leisure. Many of them will be listed under Text Editor for specific languages. Well, I'm using C#, so I can look at what's available here. In particular, code style. So let's go down to formatting. So you can see that here I can decide when braces are put on new lines after certain elements in my code. If you're already familiar with coding in a C-like language, you'll have preferences of your own. If not, just accept the standards. Indentation too, you can decide what's indented at various points, and it shows in the window down below a little example of the various changes you can make. Another thing you might want to do is change the colors, and you go to Environment, Fonts and Colors, and you'll see there's a huge range of different options here. Many are specific to particular programming languages, but some are common to all languages, such as strings and plain text, selected text, and so on. So if you don't like the colors, that's where you change them. Finally, of course, you need to be able to run your program, so that is done by clicking this button up here. Now you can either run it with debugging, which is what this one does, or without debugging, which is what this one does, or you can select the debug menu, start debugging, or start without debugging, or press one of those keys as listed there. So debugging is something that's going to be important when you are trying to spot errors in complicated programs. This, of course, is not a complicated program, but I'll show you a very simple example. I put in a breakpoint by just clicking in this far left margin, and it puts that red spot there and it highlights the line. Then I have to start with debugging. It compiles my program, and when I run the program and it hits a particular line of execution that has a breakpoint on it, it pauses the program, and now I can examine local variables that are within scope. So you can see that the mname variable has the value hue, that's the name that I entered. I could also add watch variables here, so I could enter the name specifically, and that also would evaluate that variable and show me the results down below. Now, as I said, in a very simple program like this, that's not important, but later on when we write more complicated programs, that will become increasingly important, so it's worth getting to know at least the basic features of the Visual Studio debugger. In the next lesson, I'll explain how to design a user interface so that you can program a calculator that pops up in its own little window, like this. Thanks for watching. If you liked this lesson, give it a thumbs up, and to follow this tutorial in order, bookmark the playlist shown under this video. To make sure you get notified whenever I upload new lessons, subscribe to my channel and click that little bell.